Well, all right, we are in the office this morning. We have a job site that I have to provide a quote for two different types of work. Let's get this going. Well, here it is. We've got two different types of work to quote for this one job site. You can see here this is labeled pond. This is the highlighted current home. And beside the home in this hillside, this potential customer wants a 50 by 26 by 8 foot tall ICF garage. This will actually be a 3-wall garage, and they will frame in the front side. So what we're going to quote first is the ICF garage. We do not have any official prints for this, but you can see here, this is their hope, this is their want, this is the home, which again, you guys saw here. This is the garage, and it's actually going to be built into the hill, which is why they want to use ICF. Because essentially, this wall is going to be covered at least half with the hillside. The opposite wall, which would be this wall over here, is going to be covered with half the hill. And the back wall, this wall here, is going to be 100% in this hillside. So essentially, they're building a basement of a garage, even though the roof and the front wall is going to be completely out of the earth. And their garage inspiration is this rock structure of a building. I'm not for sure what this building is, but this is their inspiration. And one of the beautiful things about ICF is the point in fact that you can put whatever facing you want on that ICF wall. You get your insulation factor. This garage space is going to be temperature controlled, so you can heat it, you can air condition it, and it's a very efficient garage. The only thing that they'll have to do is insulate that framed in fourth wall, the wall that the garage doors actually go into. And honestly, with double doors, say 10 foot wide, 10 foot tall, or 10 foot wide, 8 foot tall, since this is an 8 foot tall garage, there's really no reason to do that front wall in ICF because you're going to have so many garage doors in it. It's honestly easier to frame it in, put headers in, using 2x12s, things like that. So let's get this drawing made so that we can get the materials, the excavation that's going to be needed, and get some cost to this. All right, I've had a couple of comments where people want to see these drawings from a bird's eye view, so hopefully that's a really good view for you guys from the top side there. As you can see, we've got our 50-foot dimension there. We now need to get our width dimension or depth dimension, whichever you want to call it. Again, this is not full ICF. This is going to be 3 walls of ICF. So we have a 50-foot wall, a 26-foot wall, and another 26-foot wall. All of this being ICF garage, 50 by 26 by 8 feet. Honestly, I don't know if I like that 8 foot tall. The reason I don't know if I like that is if you buy an 8-foot garage door, you need some ceiling height. So I'm going to recommend to this customer that they go 9-foot walls so that they have at least 12 inches of headspace for garage door openers and things like that, assuming they don't want to go with jack shaft garage door openers, should I say. This being the 4th wall, this wall will actually be stick frame construction. This will not be ICF. And as I mentioned earlier in that video, this being a 4-car garage, you're going to have a double door here and a double door here at minimum, 2 12-foot doors if you will, or 4 10-foot doors, which still allows you to have space in between and space on the outside edges. But with that many doors going in this face, doing that out of ICF, it realistically does not make any sense. Now, what we've got to figure out is our total wall length. So you have 26 times 2, that's 52, plus 50. So we have wall footage equals 102 feet. That's going to ensure we know how many blocks we need to stack out this entire length. So we take 102 feet divided by 4. That will be, come over here and we write blocks. These are straights. And then we're going to need corners. We will have, at minimum, a 16-inch return on this face and on this face. The reason for that is to ensure that the ICF never falls in the structure, as there will be banks, as I mentioned. This is a hillside, this is 100% underground, and this is a hillside. So at least half of this wall and half of this wall, as you can see here, will have dirt coming down the side of it. So these little bump outs on the inside will ensure that that wall has support of ICF. So we'll put corners here and at least half a straight block. The blocks that we're going to use to quote this job are Superform. Superform blocks are 1 foot tall, 4 foot long, and 11 inches wide. We're not concerned about the 11-inch width at all, but we do know that there is 25.5 blocks to get all the way around. So we're going to bump that up by 2 blocks to get these lengths that we need for sure. So we're going to make that, I wouldn't calculate a half block anyway. I would round this up to 26. So we're going to go 28 blocks per course. And one thing we all have to remember, even though this is a garage, we have to get below the frost line. In this area, frost line per the code, per the inspector in that area, is 24 inches. He said 24 to 32. Since these blocks are 12 inches tall, if we do 12 times 2, that's 24. So we know we have that for sure. And if we add 8 inches to that, that's 32 inches. So our footer will need to be dug 32 inches down, and then we will have to pour an 8-inch footer and then stack 2 courses of block. So we know guaranteed for sure for this quote, we have 2 courses that are essentially under the ground, and then we have 9 courses that are above ground. So if we have 28 blocks per course, and we have 2 courses under the ground and 9 above, that's going to be 28 times 11 courses to make a total of 308 blocks. And then again, we know we have 11 courses and we have 4 corners. So 11 times 4, that's 44 corners. Again, 10%. That is 48 corners. And then we always ensure we have 1 ton of rebar for the entire structure per level of ICF. So 1/2-inch rebar, we're going to need 1 ton, typically equates to 155 sticks. That will get us our verticals, our horizontals, and the rebar needed for our earth in footer that we will pour here. Now we've got to calculate the square footage of floor to ensure how much concrete we're going to need to pour this slab. I like to go to a concrete calculator, is what I call it, and essentially I just Google calculate concrete tonnage, yards should I say, and it's the concrete network. This is what you see here. This is the concrete network. And what I do is I put, this will be, since there is a 4-car potential in this garage, instead of pouring a 4-inch floor, we will actually pour a 5-inch floor in here. We know that we have 50 feet of width, and we know we have 26 feet of depth. Hit calculate and it tells you your yardage. Again, we never use the exact yardage. I always bump everything up by 2 yards. So for the floor, we need 22 yards. If we don't use 22 yards, we won't charge the customer for that. Now we have to calculate the concrete needs for the ICF walls. Again, we know we have 102 feet plus at minimum 24 inches on this front side. So that's going to be 106 feet. Our thickness is the width of wall, which is 6 inches. We have 106, sorry. And then this is going to be the height of wall. You have to remember here, you have 24 inches or 2 feet under the ground, 9 feet on top of the ground. So that's going to be 11 feet. Calculate that. We need essentially, again, 22 yards. We're going to bump that up to 24 yards of concrete for the ICF walls. Now we've got to calculate our footers. As stated earlier, we're going to be 8 inches thick. We're going to be 2 foot wide. And we know for a fact that we've got to add another 50 feet to this to ensure that we have a footer and a frost wall up here that gets that front wall's foundation underneath the frost line. So we have 102 plus 50 is going to be 152 feet of footer total, 2 foot wide. That comes out to 7.5. We will bump the footers up to 9.5 yards. And that ensures we've got 2 extra yards calculated for this. Sometimes your 2 foot width when you're digging earth in footers gets a little bit wider. Sometimes you're not perfectly level all the way around, so you always want to calculate for a little extra concrete. Now, with all of that stated, in order to excavate this out, I know we're going to need the 120, and I know to get that dirt out of there, we're going to need one of 2 pieces of equipment, and that's either going to be the skid steer or the D4. And those will be the 3 pieces of equipment that we take to this job. And I know this can be either or, but if we have both on the job site, it will ensure that when we need to go back in here and backfill the gravel, on the outside we can use the excavator, on the inside we can use the excavator for most of it. But if we can't reach some of it, we'll be able to utilize a skid steer for that. We'll be able to use the D4 for pushing the dirt out and getting it removed from the excavated site. The next step to this is to run numbers on the block, corners, rebar, get numbers for all of this. Figure out, this is about 2 hours from our home base. So concrete cost I am uncertain of in that area. So I've got to call around and determine who the concrete supplier is and what their cost per yard is. But this will be our total yardage. Instead of me relying on my brain, we're just going to do this the easy way. Total yardage is going to be 22 plus 24 plus 9.5. That's going to be a total of 56. We're going to round that up from 55.5 to 56 so that it's a total number. But that is our total concrete content for this. Again, that's our total rebar and that's our total block count. So now all I have to do is figure out cost for all of this and determine what the customer wants to do in regards to a price for an ICF garage. One thing that I want to make sure everyone hears me say, since these walls will be under the ground essentially, and this wall will be under the ground, we will use Formadrain in a horseshoe shape under these 3 walls, and this wall here will be the wall that is actually what we call a frost wall that will be 2 feet deeper than these walls are excavated out. The reason for that is all this will have backfill on it, all this will have backfill on it, all this will have backfill on it, but this front wall will be exposed to the elements. So we have to make sure that we get down below frost line here so that when it does freeze and thaw, this does not freeze below the footer. That would be the key here. The other thing that we have to do, I forgot to mention, is calculate the backfill rock, which will go inside of the Formadrain, and which is 11s, and then the backfill rock that goes around the outside to ensure any water that gets down beside this wall goes all the way down to the Formadrain. The way we calculate that is we take our width of 26 feet times our length of 50 feet. Then we multiply that by our depth of rock, which is 8 inches, which is essentially 0.6666667. So we're going to multiply by 0.7, and then you divide that by 21.6. So we need 43 tons of number 11s. And then our 5s, we have 3 feet of width is typically our overdig, and 102 feet of wall. So 3 times 102. And then we have to multiply that by our depth, which is, it's going to vary, but we typically calculate this on 4 feet. Divide that by 21.6, and we're going to need 56 tons of 5s for the outside edge of that wall. We will bump that up to 60 tons. Triaxles typically carry 20 tons, so that'd be 3 truckloads. And then hopefully we can get 1 quad axle for this so that it's only 2 trucks and we end up with 43 tons. So those are specifics on the ICF garage, and as mentioned before, now I just have to get the quote from Superform, the quote from MST Bar, and then what does concrete cost in that area. Put some numbers to the equipment based on hours on the job site, and then I get to go to the pond. All right, normally you guys get to see me lay this out as I give you the explanation. However, in this situation, as you guys can see, I screen record when I lay these things out on my Hunt Stand app. What I failed to do when I laid this pond out is make sure that I had my microphone on. So I have the layout complete. Now I'm going to give you guys the explanation as to what we're going to do here and how we're going to do it. This is the current dwelling, the current home. It's a mansion. It's a rather large facility. Over here where you see the red box, this is where I am taking a really good guess as to where the garage is going to be placed. I may be incorrect and it ends up back here in this hillside. DP actually went and reviewed this site and has given me all the details, but he did not tell me the location of the ICF garage. So I'm making the assumption, since the driveway comes up right here in front of the house, that they're going to want to pull into the garage and then walk across to their home. That explains the ICF portion. You guys saw that earlier in this video. That's the location of the ICF garage, and that's what we're going to quote. Down here is the location of the pond. We do have what is essentially a set point, but this set point is going to be moved. There is a city sewer line that comes right through here and then comes over into the home. This round object is a fountain, so it has a water supply. The general contractor on this project has gotten with the city municipalities, and they're going to move that sewer line from where it is today, which is essentially here, and they're going to move it to come in and around over closer to that fountain and away from the back slope of this pond. And I don't know if they're going to reconnect it to the existing pipe or if they're going to run it up to where the stub comes out of the house. But this is a you cannot pass go, you cannot collect $200. And this is a sewer pipe. If I can type properly, sewer pipe relocate. That we have to stay away from. And as we get down here, this pond is going to end up being roughly 0.3 of an acre, and it's going to be somewhere between 6 and 8 feet deep. The blue line that you see here is the water. Yes, there is a road here. I've got some blue over the road, so it's not quite that far over, but we will bring the water level up to where it is essentially a couple of feet below this driveway, assuming they want to keep the driveway. The red line that you see here coming around the bottom is the back slope of the dam. This will have a pitch to it up to the water. There is a ditch that runs from here down through these trees, underneath of this bridge. So we have two really good points in which we can put an overflow pipe. We would not recommend an emergency overflow on this pond unless it's in this corner and we can develop some type of ditch that comes down to this corner. But down here, you guys can see these other homes, so we would not want to put an emergency overflow that could potentially jump this ditch if this pond filled up or overfilled too quickly. So we would put an overflow pipe, which essentially goes under the ground through the dam itself and feeds this ditch down here on this bottom corner. DP may choose this corner, or he may choose this corner for quote purposes. My job is to ensure that I cover all the cost. And what you see here with these yellow lines, this is the direction that we would start cutting the dirt out and contouring the bottom of this pond and utilizing that dirt to push up the core, the inside slope, and the back slope, depending on the type of dirt this is. If it's good dirt, we'd use it for the core. If it's okay dirt, we'd use it for the inside slope. If it's not good dirt, we would push it over top and on the back side for this back slope. They also own this property all the way up here in this area. So if we don't have enough dirt down here where the actual pond is going to be to push up the core, the inside slope, and the back slope, we do have an area up here in which we can borrow pit some dirt out. Again, assuming that's good dirt. It's never a guarantee that it's good dirt, but in this area, there's typically a decent amount of good dirt for us to utilize. And another thing that I want to make sure, the depth of these ponds, since there is a ditch here, we don't know if that's man-made or if that's Mother Nature made. So what we've got to do, the depth is never guaranteed until we start to hog out all of this dirt in this area. So if we get to a point where we start hitting that fractured rock, we definitely do not want to be that deep unless we come down here when we're digging this core and we find out that getting through the fractured rock, we actually end up at a better sealable dirt. So at that point in time, as long as our core is below that fractured rock all the way through in this entire area, again, this is an assumption. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's underneath the top of this surface until we start to dig. But assuming there is a fractured rock layer, if we can get below it and get down to a good clay base, that ensures that our core will be good and sealed for any water that may try to get through the bottom of this pond. So one of the things that we can always do is shallow the pond up if it is good dirt and pack all of this clay in really nicely to ensure that it seals off the bottom of this pond. But in most cases, we are trying to ensure the pond holds water with a core. I can show you guys where that core would end up. That core is going to be on the front third of the dam and run the same area, the same direction, the same shape. Everything is going to be the same on the front third of this dam. And then the back slope essentially just holds your core in place. The back slope can be whatever dirt you want it to be. It doesn't have to be anything specific. So if we turn that yellow, we call that the core / keyway. People call it different things depending on where you're at. That gives you guys a better understanding of where that core is going to be placed. But that is what we have to quote for this job site. We've got the pond, we've got the ICF garage, and then they'd also like for us to do some contouring over here whenever we get this back slope established. It may end up running over here to this corner and may end up, instead of curling in, run over to that corner. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, like, comment, subscribe.